Welcome to Lebanon City Council. We will have an invocation offered by the Reverend Don Anderson following the roll call, and then the declaration.
Kearney. Here. Suter. Here. Crabtree.
Here.
Mitchell. Here. Mather. Here. Elmore.
Here.
Jordan.
Here.
Wheeler.
Here.
Mayor Anderson.
Here.
Let's bow our heads for a word of prayer. Most kind and gracious Heavenly Father, as we come to you this evening, we are so thankful again for your many blessings and that you've bestowed upon our community. And Father, we thank you for our leaders who stand before us tonight. And Lord, tonight in this meeting, I just pray that you give them wisdom, courage, discernment to make the decisions that are right. And Father, thank you for those who serve and protect our community. We pray your blessings and protection upon them. And Father, we ask your blessings upon this council meeting tonight, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now for public comments, and I'll start on the left. If there's anybody over here that has something they'd like to say, I'd like you to come up.
Well, folks, we're here. My name is Howard Fuller, and I'm here to request...
Howard, would you pick that thing up and hold it up?
My name is Howard Fuller, and I'm here to request that the City of Lebanon stop using Elm Street on city street signs and address designations, as the city voted to do in December 1999. And you've got the paper before you. Shows the paper article. It also shows the law in there that was passed. So you understand that. I understand and appreciate that each of you support Route 66, and the city mostly does too. I know that the city always intended to complete the name change to Route 66. You have printed it on water towers. You've bought and installed street lights reminiscent of Route 66 error, but the city continues to use Elm Street as an address designation. While many businesses use Route 66 for their business address, the Cowland Civic Center uses 500 East Elm Street. And if you look on page 2, Glenn Rink asked me to do that, and we published it in the paper after asking all them businesses to, if they supported Route 66. As you see, so a lot of them businesses are businesses that are still there today. Large businesses, small businesses. But a lot of them have changed, in fact. There's different things that they've done. But they do support Route 66. Since then, we've done so much on Route 66. In fact, we're going to do a park now, and we're going to designate it Route 66. Of course, that would be called on Elm Street right now. What I'm asking you to do tonight, for the tourists and travelers that come through Lebanon, they gain a great respect for Lebanon, for their street signs. They come to see Route 66, not Elm Street. The law requires us as a city, as a public or a political subdivision of the state of Missouri, to comply with the law of calling it Route 66 all the way through. And so now I've come to you and I've asked you to remove the Elm Street signs, put up the Route 66 signs, and do all the addresses on city property along any part of city property that's on Route 66, designated Route 66. Businesses, they can keep any address that they want. The postmaster will still deliver mail to them and everything like this. Is there any questions?
I don't think there's any questions, but I will comment. If it's within my power to do so, it will happen. If it's not, or anybody else makes objections, it'll come to this body and they'll talk about it.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else on the left?
Good evening. My name is Ramona Lehman. I own and operate.
Would you pick up the microphone and hold it up in front of you, please?
Just comes up. My name is Ramona Lehman. I own and operate with my husband Bob Munger Moss Motel. We moved here 44 years ago, come the 1st of June. At that time, my address was East Business Loop, Route 66. And it stayed that way for a long time until I think 911 came in. Except I went to, we had a post office box, but then I wanted delivery, and then I was a Route 5 for a while. But, so to me, everything through there is Route 66. It's not Elm Street, and I think you all agree with that. The other thing is, we've got lots of foreigners that come through our country. Wouldn't it be nice if they saw Route 66 up and down this road? I mean, we're starting to make something. Every town, or you can look and find so many towns out west that Route 66 goes through. The whole towns go 66. You got Cuba up here. They've got Merle's, you know, they call it the Merle City and go through it. To me, our whole city has got to get behind this. Route 66 is what made this city. If we wouldn't have had Route 66, Lebanon probably would have been another Richfield or something like that. If, you know, if you go back to the history of Lebanon, the whole town fought to get 66 here. So it's up to all of us here to keep 66 going. Great for all the tourists and stuff. I've got boo-hoos of groups coming through, so I'd like to see as many 66 up there as I can see it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else on the left? I'll start in the front on the right and work back. Third row.
It's me. What do you think? Good evening. How are you guys? First off, I want to thank you for tabling that for another 2 weeks, that ordinance we talked about last week. I appreciate that. If there's any way possible, I'd like you guys to have this paperwork here that we have. These are the letters that we have sent to the city in the last week or so. We want you guys, the city council, to be update on what's going on, if that's okay.
I'd rather not. Chris can address this.
Update the mayor and council. Right now, council for the two entities are in discussions, trying to agree upon language for an ordinance for a second reading for this council. So it'd be my recommendation, since everyone has counsel, that we work through council on this. And I would ask the council and mayor not to do things outside of the proper legal channels, which is the way we're doing things now.
Your representative's talking to our representative.
That is correct.
And framework is in the process of being established, so let's keep it between legal counsel for right now.
Okay.
Which is why it's not on the agenda for second reading or otherwise right now, because it's at the council level.
Right.
That is correct, and I will agree with that and respect that decision. A union is a union, and that is a group of people who stand together to form something, correct? With that being said, this is stuff that's not coming from our attorney. This is coming from us. And I'll respect your decision. I just don't understand why you guys wouldn't want to be part of that decision. You know, you're going to hear what the attorneys have to say together, and the attorneys have been talking. We are aware of that. The only thing that we are asking is to be recognized as a union. That's what we're asking, and I believe they're in negotiations to do that. We don't have a problem with that. What we are doing is what we are doing here today is keeping you updated on that information.
Again, what the council for the two respective bodies are doing is trying to come up with procedural language for that issue. So again, that procedure needs to be in place, and then all the parties, once they've agreed upon the procedure, need to follow that procedure. So I would ask that this be tabled.
I will respect that up until this is the 4th roadblock.
Okay, thank you very
Thanks.
much. Anybody else on the right? 4th row, 5th row. The next item on the agenda is discussions and presentations, and Chris is going to present 6-month financial, and you have the floor.
Before I get started on the 6-month financials, I have a bit of a surprise that I think I was able to pull off. We have Lindsay Crumpleman here from the city of Marceline to recognize Lena.
Hi, Lena.
So, and I will turn the floor over to her for a second for that recognition.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Thank you for giving me the time to recognize Lena. As Chris said, I'm Lindsay Crumpleman. I'm the city clerk from the city of Marceline. I also serve on the Public Relations Committee for the Missouri City Clerks and Finance Officers Association, which I'm sure you know Lena is very active in. My purpose here tonight is to recognize her for her achievement of being awarded the designation of Missouri Registered City Clerk Sustaining. This certification is a combination of education and experience, and Lena is to be commended for her perseverance in achieving this goal. MCCFOA has a current membership of 516, and it is dedicated to the education of city clerks and finance officers throughout the state of Missouri. With the ever-changing state statutes and rules governing cities, it is vital that someone be kept current on those changes and regulations. MOCCFOA takes this role very seriously and will continue to strive to ensure that the education provided is relevant to the needs and position of city clerk, deputy city clerk, and assistant city clerk. Additionally, you as elected officials are to be commended for your continued support of Lena as she has worked toward this certification, and she's still got a couple more to go. It clearly demonstrates that you recognize that knowledge she receives at the educational sessions is a great benefit to you, to other city staff, and to your citizens. On a personal note, I'm a fairly new clerk. I've only been here for 3 years, but I was lucky enough to get involved in this organization early. Lena was one of the ones that kind of took me under her wing and has taught me so much on a professional and personal level. She's not only a fellow clerk, she is a good friend. I know I can talk to her about any issue that arises. And I know what a great person she is to you, to her citizens, and to her family, which are all very important to her. So I wanted to say congratulations and best wishes to Lena as she continues her commitment to lifelong learning in her career as a city clerk. And I'm so blessed to be able to come here and give this to her.
Selfie. No, it wasn't a selfie.
They're going to get you yet.
All I say was do.
For my council members.
Congratulations, Lena. Now, you can proceed with the advertised discussion.
I tell you, it is not easy to keep a secret from Lena, especially as it relates to agenda creation. So I just want to give a brief summary of our 6-month financials. You guys got a copy. The bottom line is there's no surprises. We are on track with what we anticipated. as the fiscal year began back July 1st of 2014. If you look at the summary pages, which there's a summary page at the beginning of each fund, it will give you the totality of the revenues and the expenditures. And starting on page 1, you can see that we are setting, sorry, page 1, that we are basically setting at 46% of revenue and 46% of expenditures, and so that's through 50% of total activity. We are showing a deficit spending in the general fund of about $37,000, which we had budgeted to be at a deficit spend of $251,000. So I would say that we're actually doing better than we anticipated. So under that scenario, we should be at $125,000 deficit spending. Some bright spots, and if you really look at that, keep in mind that this is a little deceiving in the fact that real estate is not amortized over a 12-month period. So we have 2 large months for our real estate collection, and that is in December and January. So when you sort of normalize the collection of our property tax and real estate tax, then in fact we're probably break even at this point. So because we get a large collection when people pay their taxes in December, we'll get those receipts in January which aren't reflected. So this is sort of property tax reflected for November activity. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So another bright spot is the sales tax. We're up about 3%, 2 to 3% in all of our sales tax. So I know there's some discussion at the work session, but our property tax is doing good for the first 6 months, all in both or in street, capital, and our general sales tax. So I feel that is a very large bright spot in our economy. So court revenue is down, but so are their expenditures. So, and police and fire are within their operating budgets, and that is the same with the Civic Center and other general administration activities. So, so that's basically the general fund. The street fund is again seen, I will on page, well, page 1. So the street fund, you can see, is about 44% of activity on the revenue side and 38% on the expense side. We will have the months of April, May, and June where we'll do street-related activities. So that's when you'll see those numbers, activity kind of pick back up. We have had a mild winter, so some of the normal winter expenses that we see, we're not seeing. And as you guys recall from last year, potholes were getting pretty rough about this time. I don't think they're near at the level they were last year, so hopefully that will allow us to see some savings in our budget. Capital, as we discussed over really the last 6 months of preparing for this fiscal year, that this was going to be a year that we were going to invest heavy out of our capital fund, and that is playing out as we had budgeted. So the capital expenditures is showing about a $550,000 deficit, but that is spending down those balances that we held on for so long, and we're finally spending that and reinvesting the collection that's been given to us by our citizens. So I'm very happy with how those projects have happened. They've all been under their budget or within their budget, and I think those projects are something that we can be proud of. Tourism, you can see the head and bed tax is up about 55% of collection. So that is another positive. And at this point, they are operating at a $13,000 positive. 45, which is our economic development fund, as you can see that there, that obviously we sold the Dalco building, and so that revenue is being picked up, and the expenses are predominantly debt service being paid back, and obviously the revenue over expense, that high balance is was put towards the liability that existed in that fund. 50 and 60, those are pass-through. Those are internal services, and so their revenue is offset with interdepartmental, and all of their expenses are down across the board in excess of 5% at this point. So whether it be community development or engineering, both of those combined are about 45% of expenditures. When you look at Fund 60, which includes garage, IT, facility management, and janitorial, most of those are in the low 40%. So that's where, so that's showing you that they're about 10% off expenditures, 5 to 10%. Fund 70, you know, we had made a goal to try to grow that balance. As you can see here to date, we're in the positive of about 11,000 revenue over expenditures, but our expenditures are down. So that's a good, I mean, we're not where we should be in trying to grow that fund balance, but by the same token, our cost and associated revenue is down. So that means we're having less activity, which is a good thing because a lot of our main activity is claims. Fund 73, or the airport, it is at a deficit at this point of about 29,000, which is basically our 10% match for the project of the overlay. So I'm not discouraged by that, and we have not transferred any money in from the general fund to cover that deficit. So you can look at that in a couple of different ways. The general fund is sort of flush at this point, but we also haven't done some of the transfers that we had budgeted to do in terms of tourism and the airport. So
you were speaking of seal coat, weren't you, instead of overlay?
I'm sorry, yes. Yes. So, the only one thing I will bring to your attention on the expense side, if you look at from a balance sheet standpoint, the cash balance is a lot lower than the 29,000, but we purchase fuel, but we don't expense that fuel until it's actually pumped into an airplane. So if you look, you'll see a number, or cost of goods sold, and that's where that expense will hit once we pump it into an airplane. And you can see that the actual year-to-date. So for example, looking at fuel sales, year-to-date is 32,000. Cost of goods sold is 25,000. So obviously, our margin is the difference between those two numbers for fuel sales.
About how much fuel is on site right now? I mean, that you have in the tanks?
We probably have 6,000 of jet and probably 8,000 of, 6,000 of av fuel and about 8,000 of jet. Downtown Business District, and again, part of their revenue is property tax, and so their actual activity is down, but I do have a feeling that they're going to do some landscaping this spring along commercial, and so you'll see some expenses in the second 6 months where that will capture that activity. Parks, I mean, John's here, but I mean, the bottom line is that that board regulates those funds. It does, you can see that they had an infusion of cash with the Nelson facility, and they're about $439,000 in expenses at this point. So, which is, they're a little high on their expenses, but a lot of their activity with the pool has kind of already occurred for this fiscal year. So, John, you're here. Is there anything you want to add?
It's pretty much a correct statement. We're only on property tax, which we haven't collected all of our property tax funds yet. And part of we did make a conscious decision to get a fund balance, and we are spending some of that fund balance down, buying playground and restrooms out of actual park. A lot of those expenses have already incurred, such as the Persian playground and restrooms. So that is divided a little bit when we roll at the end of the season. Be a little out of the local budget, but it was only like approved by the board of playground restrooms. I don't matter.
About what was your fund balance at the beginning of the year?
Right about 540K. And I think we were going to spend it down. We were trying to get it down to about 300. I think that's where we were about on our spending.
The electric fund, it is on target. I think we've talked about it a lot. I can go into detail on that, but I think that's a well-discussed fund. So for the time, fiber, it is. We did have some expenses out of there related to some of our network. And so, as you can see, it's running in a deficit, but most of that expense was up front, and so now the rest of the remaining 6 funds, the revenue will come back in to offset that. Wastewater, as you can see, right now we're operating about $55,000 to the good, revenue over expenses. And again, I would commend the staff there in terms of managing some of their expenses, but they have done a lot of capital improvement, dealing with a lot of our sanitary overflows and managing our entire system. So, and we're still being able to operate at a positive there, so that's a good thing. As far as our water operations, that has a negative balance, but again, we had proceeds from the bonding issue of 2010 that was a part of that, that set in its fund balance. This year we expensed those dollars on the towers, and so that is that activity being reflected. So we essentially borrowed money to expense this year, so that's why you see the negative revenue over expense in the water. So most of our operational costs are down. We do have some things that we've seen an increase in, but all in all, it's about what we would expect, and there are no large surprises in the 6-month activity. Any questions? And I apologize for not putting this in the packet. It's been on our website for several months. It just didn't get into the packet.
Does anybody have any questions with regard to this presentation?
Our year-to-date, all funds is $26 million in revenue and $23 million in expenses. $24 million in expenses.
I'll just make a comment that the first year that department heads did the budget, remember that? And we had some overages, 300–400%.
just gave us of 26 and 23 million. Does that include the sale of the 2 pieces of real estate?
My guess is yes. I mean, I think it just, yeah, my guess is yes.
Any other questions or comment?
I think it's just a summary of all of those revenues in here, so yeah.
So really, we're much closer to break even on an actual operational basis.
I would say we're probably less revenue than expenses. So if you have 3 million in sales and it's 26.2 and 23.87, it's probably a little bit.
I only got the 23.
Yeah, no, so it's probably a little, but again, I mean, it's very important to understand the amortization of the real estate. I mean, we'll get 50% of that in 1 month, which is January, which is not reflected in these numbers. So to me, when you look at it, really, we're probably dead eat, just exactly as we anticipated. So, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's do the minutes. This is a January 8 work session, and I think everybody was in attendance.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Kearney?
Yes.
Suter?
Yes.
Crabtree?
Yes.
Mitchell?
Yes.
Mather?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Jordan?
Yes.
Wheeler?
Yes.
And warrants. Any questions about specific warrants?
I have a couple. Find my piece of paper. On page 8, we purchased a 46-inch LED TV for $549. Who got a TV? Who's watching TV all day?
Oops, that was mine.
So it came out of fiber, so it went with our IT.
Smart board that we're testing for. We have a message board on P that we're building for. Same thing on public works side.
Okay, so where is it physically? Is it here?
Yeah, we have it on our stock over on the public works side of server.
Okay, just curious.
Yep, there you go.
And on page 15, and I am
50, no, I'm sorry, 15.
15, page
Gotcha.
15.
Uh-huh.
It says that we sent Joe to the Kansas City Boat Show,
We did.
and I think that's great. Except what is that doing for Joe's job?
So, well, I asked him to buy me a boat. No. So a couple of years ago, Joe, I was the interim tourism director, and Joe was sort of doing some of our contracting and stuff like that. And him and I went up there, and he just had a blast. So what we do essentially is tourism has to have an employee go up there and help them. And so, because it really takes 2 to man the booth, and so ever since then I've just let Joe go because Joe really enjoys that. So, and he just has a hoot of a time. He knows our community well, and so that is.
So it's through tourism.
It's
not
through,
just.
It's through tourism. It's paid directly by tourism's budget, and I think Joe does a really good job of representing the city of Lebanon, and so
That's.
where
I just wanted to know why we were going to a boat show.
That's a good question.
Okay.
So.
Anybody else?
Motion approved.
Yes, I have a question.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
No.
Page 17, Neil Twitter. $5,200 for a repair.
That was for a automobile accident. Came out of my vehicle repair fund. The insurance check does not go into that. That particular fund goes into a revenue. But we were reimbursed by insurance. That was to repair a vehicle.
Okay, so it was police vehicle. I don't have the number, but no
Oh, I
Is
had
that yours?
questions too.
Okay. Did you shop around?
Yes, we did.
Okay. And
By the time we paid freight and everything else that we could find, that was the best.
are they the white folding
Big heavy
resin
plastic.
ones? $110 each.
Wow. We bid them.
You bid them?
What are you using them for?
Just different events. We were using Daryl's tables, but we ended up on a buying for the Hunger Game event. I think was the one where he had a gun show and all his tables were used and the warming tables available. And we knew about it in advance. It wasn't just the last second deal. We went out and looked at it before, and that was the best we could come up with.
Are they the half-fold ones where you can carry them, or are they the solid?
They're the solid, but they're fairly.
They're light. They're light.
They're a nice table. They are a nice, durable table that will last.
Nothing
You
beginning.
can buy a cheaper table, yes ma'am. But we didn't figure that they were safe. We want something that if somebody decides to sit on it, which they're not supposed to do, but everybody knows people do. We
Maybe
want to
cheap.
collapse and get somebody hurt.
That still sounds like a lot of money for
What
that.
happened?
Let's see the tape.
That's all.
I'd say about 150.
I have a motion. Could I have a second?
Second. Last as long as it'll be.
Suter.
Yes.
Crabtree.
Yes.
Mitchell.
Yes.
Mather.
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Wheeler.
Yes.
Kearney.
Yes.
Now we'll move to ordinances, and there being no second readings, we'll move to first and second readings and start with Council Bill 4052, which is at least an annual grant request. And Chief, if you'd address that, I'd appreciate it.
This is we apply annually for a DWI enforcement grant to pay for officer overtime. We've applied for this particular grant every year since 2010 and have been awarded it each year since 2010. This is 100% funding, no city match.
That's my favorite price.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Crabtree.
Yes.
Mitchell.
Yes.
Mather.
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Wheeler.
Yes.
Kearney. Yes. Suter.
Yes. Move on second.
Second.
Mitchell.
Yes.
Mather.
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Wheeler.
Yes.
Kearney.
Yes.
Suter.
Yes.
Crabtree.
Yes.
Council Bill 4052 has been passed and becomes ordinance 5304. Council Bill 4053 deals with the purchase of in-car cameras for 3 police cars. Chief?
Each year for the past 2 years, we've been seeking to equip 3 police vehicles with in-car cameras. We currently have 6. If this is approved, that would bring us to 9, with only 3 cars remaining that would need to be equipped with these cameras. The in-car camera systems provide a valuable feature as far as evidence collection, and also reduces frivolous lawsuits, and also brings to light if there is any certain circumstances, we've got video evidence of it. Right now we have 6 cars equipped. If this is approved, that'll bring us to 9 with only 3 remaining.
Motion to approve.
Second. Is this audio and video or strictly video?
No, it's audio and video. The officer actually has a mic on that he carries on his uniform, and will even record the audio when they are outside of visual range.
The audio goes 60 foot.
And it downloads when they come in, right?
Yes, it automatically downloads whenever the patrol car pulls into the parking lot.
Well,
Would you look to budget 3 more next year so all the cars have those cameras?
Yes, sir.
Have you given any thought to personal cameras, officer cameras?
I have looked at that. Right now, there are a lot of issues and concerns about privacy and state law not being brought up to, not in compliance with the Sunshine Law. There are some issues that the state is currently looking at to address those concerns, but that is something that down the road I would definitely like to look into.
I know probably the officer in Springfield that got shot the other day probably didn't have one on him, but it would have sure been a blessing to the prosecution if he'd had one.
And just as a statement, I intend to make the cameras on the car standard equipment, so anytime we bring a car purchase forward, it will, as part of outfitting that car from this point forward, it will be outfitted with the camera, so that once we catch up, we're not buying them independently, we're buying them as a standard piece of equipment for this car. So, just to add on to Mr. Crabtree's point.
Are these not movable then? Can you not take it out of one and put it in another?
After the initial install, which is part of the package, the new systems come with a 5-year warranty, and anything that is removed, the IT department, say one, God forbid, is an accident, we can pull and move.
Okay.
And the old camera systems were 1-year warranties. First one, second batch was 2 years, and now the newer models, which have higher depth capabilities, are 5-year warranties on them.
Go ahead.
Mather.
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Wheeler.
Yes.
Herney.
Yes.
Suter.
Yes.
Crabtree.
Yes.
Mitchell.
Yes.
Who wants second?
Second.
Elmore.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Wheeler.
Yes.
Herney.
Yes.
Suter.
Yes.
Crabtree.
Yes.
Mitchell.
Yes.
Mather.
Yes.
Council Bill 4053 has been passed and is ordinance 5305. Council Bill 4054 deals with the purchase for 2015 of gravel and rock from Willard Quarries.
Motion approved.
Second.
The prices we got from Willard are the same as what we're currently bid for 14. The only thing that went up was riprap, and it went up $2 a ton. We don't use a considerable amount of that material. It's mainly used for stormwater projects for high erosion areas, but everything is the same as 2014. And as you can see, some other surrounding quarries have a difference in price. Can't afford to transport it for the difference in the cost.
Is there a
Any
motion on
questions?
Yeah.
May I have a roll call? Oh, we don't have a motion yet.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I seconded it.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
I didn't remember.
Jordan.
Yes.
Wheeler.
Yes.
Herney.
Yes.
Suter.
Yes.
Crabtree.
Yes.
Mitchell.
Yes.
Mather.
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
Move on to second.
Second.
Wheeler.
Yes.
Herney.
Yes.
Suter.
Yes.
Crabtree.
Yes.
Mitchell.
Yes.
Mather.
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Council Bill 4054 is approved and is ordinance 5306. Council Bill 4055 deals with the purchase for 2015 ready mix concrete from Lebanon Ready Mix. Any questions?
Motion to approve. Second.
Herney.
Yes.
Suter.
Yes.
Crabtree.
Yes.
Mitchell.
Yes.
Mather.
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Wheeler.
Yes.
Move on to second.
Second.
Suter.
Yes. Yes, I'm sorry.
Crabtree.
Yes.
Mitchell.
Yes.
Mather.
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Wheeler.
Yes.
Herney.
Council Bill 4055 is approved and becomes ordinance 5307. Council Bill 4056 deals with the purchase of drop-down basketball goals for the Civic Center.
This was in his CIP, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Yes, this is it was in CFP for several years. It was put in the budget this year. This is the basketball goals are used a lot, but they're also having to move them a lot, and they're large, bulky, and so this will allow us to have an aerial approach, and then so as events use it, they can just hit a button and move it up versus getting a request and having us move it and so forth and so forth and so forth. And it's something that's been talked about for years.
This is the main auditorium? The big room?
No.
For the
Gym.
basketball courts?
Basketball courts.
Okay.
Are we going to surplus the old ones and sell them, or what will happen with the old ones? Or will they be used in another facility? Or
I believe Daryl is seeing on the larger ones if the school can utilize them in any form and fashion. And if so, that would come back before you guys. I do believe that the two smaller ones are going to be retained so that we can have a little bit more flexibility when it comes to basketball related activities.
There's no bid sheet attached. You know what the other bids were.
You say in the that the city received 2 bids in the third whereas.
Do you want me to if I can get on the Wi-Fi?
Well, I have a question while Lena's looking for that.
Sure.
We're purchasing this primarily for the YMCA's usage.
Sure.
So again, our citizens can't use these basketball goals unless they're a member of the Y.
I don't know that I would agree with that. I know the homeschoolers do a major tournament, and I believe that there is some open gym where they could get a daily pass. So membership is not a requirement of utilization. But there is daily passes, and I do know the homeschool folks use it, and I do know that as part of the WISE program, they actually have a basketball league with several that are sponsored with several corporate citizens. So that's a program, and again, membership's not required to participate in that league. So there's another example where they're being utilized by folks that may or may not be members of the Y.
That was a mistake on my part that I didn't get that attached.
Also, the homeschool association use of that gym goes well beyond a tournament. They have an annual league thing from all over South Missouri. You know?
And so this has been something, and I mean, again, I hate to use safety, but I mean, these floor mounts, I mean, can easily be pulled down onto you. I mean, they are, so this just gets up where it's a lot easier for us to manage that area and much more convenient and, in my opinion, safer. So we could do.
No, it just helps.
No,
it's going to affect the way I'm going to vote to know somebody else can use it.
Yeah, I understand that. But yeah, they are absolutely used by more than Y members, yes.
I still have the problem of us spending a lot of money for maybe just a few people that's going to be using these things. And it's not for the greater good of the whole city of Lebanon. And I just have a problem with some of this. I think at some time or another, Y is going to have to take care of their own problem instead of the taxpayers have to support it all the time. That's all I've got.
I just have a comment that at my time on the park board, this was identified way before the Y came, that it was a safety concern because there's a pole there where kids or whoever could run into it. So this predates the Y as a need. It was kind of, I think, a design issue when it was initially built that we didn't do that. So.
Yeah, and again, part of what we talked about in the budget process was to expend some of those dollars in out of Fund 22 for improvements at the Civic Center. This was one that was identified for a moment. And so we're just presenting that to the
Any further comments or questions?
Motion to accept.
Second.
Crabtree,
No.
Mitchell,
Yes.
Mather,
Yes.
Elmore,
As a longtime safety factor we've talked about, I'll vote yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Wheeler,
Yes.
Herney,
Even though I don't believe in the black hole, that was the Civic Center, I'll vote yes for safety, as Mr. Elmore said.
Suter,
Yes.
Move on to second.
Second to second.
Mitchell,
Yes.
Mather,
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Wheeler,
Yes.
Herney,
Yes.
Suter,
Yes.
Crabtree.
No.
Council Bill 4056 has been passed as ordinance 5308. Council Bill 4057 deals with the contract between the Parks Department and Cochran Engineering for a comprehensive plan. John?
What you see before you is an ordinance to allow us to enter an agreement for a master plan. It's something we talked about, and Councilwoman Mather can tell you on her time on the park board. We looked at doing it. We were looking at outside firms then, but we decided at that time it didn't make a lot of sense to pay somebody else to do something when we knew a lot of the needs and we didn't have the funds available at that time to do our own needs, much less pay somebody to find ones and tell us the same, plus find more. With the sale of the Nelson property, that has changed the way we look. The park board looks at it. They would like to spend this money to make sure we're looking at the right things. We went out with RFQs. 5 firms did respond. I can give you that list, or it's on there. Cochran and Ochsner were the 2 high scores. We brought those guys back in. They gave us an actual presentation. Cochran was the park board choice 4-2. We're looking at probably spending between $25,000 and $40,000 on this project. You can see the list of things as I gave you, what we'll kind of get for that, the timeline, and some of the things that we'll get. One of the things that probably brings us up was Mr. Owens when he was in here saying that maybe there was potentially a need of a park on the east and south side of Interstate 44. This group will help us to determine where those needs are now, where they might be in the future. They'll look at demographics, they'll look at trends, they'll look at a lot of things that we don't have the expertise or the time to come up with. So I think it's money well spent, maybe not necessarily for today as much as it is for the future, for park planning and making sure we're going in the right direction and spending money wisely and properly in the future.
Questions?
They do incorporate a lot of the master plan work that you have already worked on?
That was one of the reasons this group was so successful in their presentation. They went in and looked at our stuff and actually gave us presentations using some of the stuff we'd identified by park and things like that, saying, yeah, those are some areas that look good place to start. So we were impressed with some of the background they did in their presentation, looking at the stuff we had already done. So yes, they'll use our information. They'll use, and it kind of depends on what the park board asked them to get their information from, but they could do surveys, they could do public meetings. There's a wide variety of different ways they'll gather all this information.
So how long ago did they look at all your information? You said they had reviewed it all just recently?
Oh, just for this presentation.
And
Yes.
no one else offered to?
Not to the extent they did. That was one of the things that we were impressed with, the amount of homework they did for their presentation.
And you really think you and your staff or and the board is just not capable of foreseeing your future?
We can see some of it, but I think it helps us get a better understanding of what the trends are and where people are moving to and stuff. I know it seems like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money, but it is, you know, cities need master plans to grow and expand, and parks need the same thing that a city does.
John, how long will they project out?
They'll go out probably 10, 12, 15 years, but I think in all the discussions I've heard, you kind of need to relook at it again in about 5 to 7. Obviously, look at what happened with 2008. You know, if you just had a master plan done in 2006, 2008 happens and everything's changed. So they can't guarantee anything. If things continue on the plan that they think they were when they did it, it could be good for 10 or 12 years. If something changes or a drastic change, then you go in and revisit it. You have a good base. You don't have to spend this kind of money for a new plan. It can just be addressed or doctored.
Which fund is this coming out of?
79.
I have a question, I don't know if it's for you or for Mr. Hurt, will there be overlap between this and the RFQ that we're thinking of putting out? And he's talking about, you know, the trends in the city and population and stuff, well, I would think there would be overlap in there.
Yes and no. From our perspective, that ours is looking at a land use component, and theirs is going to look at it from a recreational standpoint. So what I would tell you is that ours, the comprehensive plan would then reference any and all master plans, whether it be parks, streets, and so forth. So, and if there is some primary data that Cochrane has, we could definitely utilize it to save cost on our end, if in fact we proceed in that direction. So
yeah, I'd hate to be paying that kind of money to do two of them.
It kind of seems like it's backwards.
Yeah.
Like,
no.
Like the city's comprehensive should come first and maybe the parks later.
No, I don't think that's the case. Theirs is going to be a lot more detailed, focused on park and the park land. So they're not really outside of going out, looking at their current park land and maybe looking at some areas for future park development. But theirs is going to be very specific in how to manage the park land, where ours is going to take a comprehensive look at land use and development of the city. So to me, they're two completely separate issues related to only bound by the idea that they're both long-term planning. But their report will be very much focused on parks and how to develop each and every park that we currently have, where ours will be looking at how to lay out land use for the next 15 years for the entire incorporated limits and some of the surrounding areas.
And I think I'll concur with what Chris said on that. If you'll look at the existing city's comprehensive or master plan, look at the park section, I think there's 3 lines in the park section. So I don't think that the plan you guys will be looking for the whole city will give the park really the direction that we're needing to go. So I think they can incorporate ours into theirs, and it'll help them have a better overall comprehensive plan for the city, but I think ours is a separate issue.
Yeah, but when you're looking at population trends, you're looking at surveying your city. You don't want to pay for 2.
We won't. I mean, if Cochrane has primary data that is of interest to the comprehensive plan, and we will definitely utilize that primary data and not recreate it. Now, if it's all secondary data is available in public sources anyways, and so, I mean, it's generally little to no cost for secondary data as it is.
Except time. Except time.
Right. But I'll be we'll be very mindful of that, being that they're sort of getting a head start.
What is the anticipated, how much are you anticipating spending, John? Because there's no figures in here at all.
Between 25 and 40,000. That's why I said we will have to decide what it all includes. We'll actually negotiate that as we proceed.
I would like to have more of a feel for the scope and the cost before it is approved.
Well, I think it's the same as what we're going through. We have have to approve the RFQ first, then you just did it. Now you have to go to them now that you have them. I understand the process, and now you have to go to them and negotiate on what you want done. And then you'll come back with a price. So he'll come back.
Come back and ask for money after we get done. Yeah. I just want to make sure. Yes, thank you for the clarification.
So this-
She's correct.
Do we have a motion? Motion.
Second.
Mather,
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Wheeler,
Yes.
Perney,
Yes.
Studer,
Yes.
Crabtree,
Yes.
Mitchell.
Yes.
Who on second?
Second.
Elmore,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Wheeler,
Yes.
Perney, Studer,
Yes.
Crabtree,
Yes.
Mitchell,
Yes.
Mather.
Yes.
Council Bill 4057 has been approved and is now ordinance 5309. That concludes first and second readings. There will be no first readings. We'll move to old business, of which I know of none. Anybody?
I was just wondering about the RFQ that we talked about at the work session on Thursday. Do we need direction on that tonight?
I thought we gave direction on it, didn't we?
Well, no, we said we would talk about it tonight.
Oh, we were going to bring it up tonight,
Yeah.
weren't we?
So you
Are you
want,
putting that under old business?
yes.
Here you
Is that okay? Because we talked on Thursday night, we'd like to see if there was we had a chance to read it now. Staff, did you have any more comments? We kind of cut you off the other night because it was late.
I just didn't know if you guys would like to put it on the screen.
I'll make that motion. Do you want it as a motion? No, as a direction?
not
I'll
really.
make it as a direction to put an RFQ out there.
Okay.
Because it doesn't cost anything. Is that all right, guys?
I think everybody's in agreement, probably.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Anything else? We'll move comments and start with staff. Chief?
I have nothing, sir. Thank you.
Chief?
I'm just trying to figure out why we threw a pass instead of running the other night, but we'll get over it.
Because the Butler did it. In the end zone with a pick.
And the ball was flat.
I don't think you wrote your activity report this week. What are you doing?
Well, we finished up quite a few projects. We spent about $6,000 the other night on that little storm event, throwing salt out that was preventive, you know. You can either be a hero or zero on something like that. So better caution than not. So gearing up for a lot of projects in the spring. So.
Have you reached an agreement with MoDOT? Are you going to put these sidewalks in?
We have not reached an agreement yet. We've been working diligently with them to draw that to an end. So.
Working at Nelson Park is coming along really nice. The weather hasn't been the greatest, obviously, but they're making good progress. Should start to see some curb and a lot more sidewalk going in this week if the weather turns out to be as nice as they say it's going to be this week. We have actually started on some of the new playground equipment out at Ashley Park. If you drive by there, there's 8 or 10, 12 posts in the ground, and it's again, slow go with the ground being wet and soft and freezing and thawing and having to put each part together slowly and making sure they all fit together correctly, so it takes a while. And the bathroom is obviously open and usable. On the family changing side, the men's and the women's, we will keep closed till the spring. They are operational. If we would have an event there tomorrow, we could open them up. It just doesn't make sense to have them open to the public, to have to maintain and clean and supply all winter long when there's only 2 or 3 people going in there a day and they can use the family changing station. The Boswell tennis courts will be ready this spring. They're usable now. As soon as we get the nets put up with a temporary surface, as soon as the weather gets there, we'll paint them. And I think that's pretty much about as busy as we can be.
Chris Allen?
No, I don't have any comments, Mr. Mayor.
The only comment is that several of us will be out of at the state capitol tomorrow and Wednesday. So wish us well. We are under attack as always, and for some reason the state legislature is not too friendly with municipalities these days. And so after a couple of days up there, it'll be refreshing to come back home. So that's where we're going to be for the next couple of days. So, and then also I'm starting to put a tentative schedule together for our work sessions to get us through midsummer or so that I can, with some of the items that I think we need to be working on in preparation for the next fiscal year, I want to make sure that those are kind of properly sequenced. So if there's anything of subject that you guys are interested in putting on the work session, could you please get with me so that I can incorporate that into my little master calendar that I'm trying to put together that will ultimately be disseminated to you guys. So if you can think of ideas that you'd like to talk about at the work session, let me know in the next month or so that I can get those put out.
I'll make a comment about that. As a work session, I agree the agenda needs to go out there. The public needs to know what we're supposed to talk about. But I also think we as council that sometimes what we're talking, something that may have come up this week, and it might not, that's the reason it says tentative agenda on it too. And we're not taking any votes, so I think that if sometimes, yes, we should let you know ahead of time, but if something comes up, I think we should have that leeway to put it on the agenda that night, or bring it up at least. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I agree.
Lena?
I like that.
Can we do that?
It can be by bending the agenda. Yeah.
Okay.
I just think it should be more of a work session than a council meeting where we're sitting down there versus sitting up here. That's all.
As long as you don't need staff participation and things that would come up that night. I mean, that's the,
right.
I mean, that's that was just, I mean, if we're not aware, then we can't properly plan for it, obviously.
Yeah, not to go inside. Just sometimes things come up.
Is that all you have?
Yes.
All right. I'll start with you, Bill. We'll start with council.
I have nothing.
Coming across, Chuck.
I got a couple of things. I want to welcome Metal Tech and the Bishops to town. I'm glad to see them coming. I attended the grand opening of their facility in Eldridge. I'm impressed with the work that they do there. They're very capable, very quality, bunch of work. Thank you, Richard, for the hole patching. There's patches all over town. I like to see that. Another compliment to the electric department. We had a power outage at church last weekend, and I went in, checked all the building, and found it was no power. Couldn't figure out why. I called the city. 45 minutes they were there and had it fixed. Some twit had come by and turned the power off the pole with the breaker, and just being a vandal. But I didn't know to look. But so I say 45 minutes they had us going. And it was good to find that out. But thank you for that. That covers it.
Yeah, I do have something to say. I don't really know how to say it, but I'm a little troubled with what happened here tonight. No offense to our legal team, but it seems as though someone had something to say to us, and they're our employees. And I don't know how I should feel about it, but I can tell you how I do. I'm just as human as anybody else, and I've never been through these beginning of negotiation like this. So, you know, I don't know, but I can tell you I'm troubled by it when someone has something to say and they're just blatantly shut down. So all you people out there, I want you to know how I feel. I don't know. I don't know how I should feel, but I don't like it. I'll just put it like that. I don't like it.
I just want to say congratulations to Lena. Good job on your certification.
I'd like to say I thank Lindsay because she traveled a very long distance. She lives about 2.5, 3 hours away. She's way up north, so
Yeah.
she traveled a long distance to do that, and I appreciate it.
I have
had some things I was going to say, and discretion being the better part of valor, I would just like to speak to you, Police Chief Halstead, in private afterwards, because I think that's better. So if I could have a few minutes of your time. Thank you.
I have nothing.
Randy?
I would like to comment, Mr. Fuller and Ramona Lehman, for their comments this evening. Route 66 has been an important item in our community for me and my family, and thank you.
I just had a couple of things. I was sent an article that was written, and Lena, this is kind of for you. Is it true, and I always believe in going to the source, is it true that there's some customer out there that got a $5,000 extra bill because of misreadings? Is that a true statement?
Quite honestly, I don't know how to answer that because I don't have that data. I've had so many things brought to my attention that it's possible. I'm just, no, I'm sorry, I don't.
Okay, I was just curious because I just seen, I will say my bill will be in the mail next week, so if I get one of those.
Now, we did have a customer that had a massive water leak that had a several $1,000 bill. Yes.
I was sent this number, and I just questioned it.
That type of extreme leads me to believe it may be the water leak issue.
Okay. Also, did others receive a letter from Chamber about local makes sense, that one?
Yes.
Okay, I was a little confused about that. I thought our decision was to reduce it this year, and then not to fund it for years after this. Was this year going to be our last year? Is that?
My recall is that we agreed that the largest service agreements would be no more than $2,000 this year, and that we would do away with them another year.
That's not how the letter that I read says. So I was just wondering if that was my misunderstanding or...
So I have no idea what you guys got.
A copy of the letter you sent out.
Okay. Which encouraged everybody to, that the council had directed me that it would be a $2,000 cap. So if you got that letter, that means you were eligible to submit for a $2,000 cap. And I think they're one of the last ones that we haven't heard nothing of. So you didn't get it? Okay, you got it, okay.
The letter doesn't say,
the end.
The end. Yeah, it doesn't say the end. It leaves it kind of vague that it might be $2,000 from here on out. I think your letter didn't say, and it's the council's pleasure, that we terminate after this fiscal year service agreements.
Yeah, I was led to believe it was 2,000 from here on.
Mm-hmm. If I got that letter and that's how I read it, then I would assume next year I'd get another 2,000, and the year after I'd get 2,000, as opposed to what our intention was, that guys, we're cutting back, but we want to warn you ahead of time, so be prepared.
So could we go back and read the minutes and figure out?
No, I mean,
well, we need to know what we decided.
That is what we decided.
Just 2,000 from here on out?
No. For this year and from here on out, none.
Nothing more after this year.
If you guys remember, I'm the one that said that why don't we split it in half and or cap it at $2,000 with these, and it would be a total of $16,000 expense, and that's what there was head nodding, and that's where I left it. So the mayor signed off. I gave the mayor the letter that I wrote based on your guys' instructions, and I said, here's what I'm sending out. Are you good with it? And he said yes. So
I remember the $16,000 right there.
Right. So that's where there was not a definitive, we're doing 2,000 and we're ending it. It was, I brought up, okay, well, okay. So
better look.
So that's fine. I mean, obviously this conversation will report that, but in terms of writing the letter, gosh, it's been so long since I wrote that letter. But the mayor and I both signed off on that letter, and that's sort of where we are at this point.
Signed off on which letter? The 2000?
Whatever, the letter that I sent out to those folks. I mean, and again, it's been so long since I wrote that letter, I couldn't tell you what it said. So, but it was to encourage them all to submit with the $2,000 for this fiscal year, and that they did not need to present in front of council. So
they would just get it automatic.
Well, that I would put it
in the future.
I would put it in front of council for consideration, because the bill still you guys have to expend those funds. So the service agreements will still come to council, but they don't have to present.
Just this year.
Yeah.
Right, but we're saying this letter doesn't make it clear that this year is the final payment. So was it your understanding that's not what we were saying?
Yeah. If I can look at my letter.
Okay, it's right here.
Okay.
It's dated December 16th.
Okay, so.
You want to see it right quick? It's short.
Yeah. So.
I'd kind of like to know where we're at.
Well, I mean, that's fine. I mean, I think we can communicate that.
That was the first time I had seen that letter when I got a copy of it from the chamber.
So,
this week.
We need to know what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, so the first and foremost, I mean, in terms of, we're getting ready to go through another budget cycle. So this particular one was the first and biggest change. Maximum value is capped at $2,000. And then another change. So I was specifically talking about changes to this fiscal year's submittals, because that's what the specific just need was. So I have no problem going back and communicating to these folks that this will be the last submittal. I was simply trying to get them saying, here's the 2,000, and that you no longer have to present in front of council, just to turn your stuff in, and then we'll put the ordinance forward for them to take action on. And so, I mean, you guys still have to vote on those ordinances. So I knew that there would be more discussion as it relates to the service agreements, because they're going to be coming to you, I think, starting at the next meeting. So, because you guys have to appropriate those funds. I can't just...
I guess to me, it was misleading to everyone that got that letter.
That wasn't.
Because it didn't say, and this is the end. And so to me, I'm just thinking, as an organization, I would think, okay, I now have to learn to live with just 2,000 as opposed to 2,500 or 3,600 or whatever I used to get.
Ms. Herney, I will say that I personally spoke to a lot of these service agreement organizations, and I verbalized that this was the last.
Okay, so as long as they're aware. I just don't want somebody to come back and say, and look, the letter didn't say it, we're again blindsided.
I don't think I've talked to every one of them, but I've talked to quite a few of them because they call and inquire, and so at that point in time I took the liberty to do that.
I just didn't.
And I've talked to several also. I mean, I've talked to several also. I mean, that's...
Well, if that's the consensus, maybe we need to send out a letter of clarification.
I think it needs to be in a letter.
You think?
Well,
yes,
we tell them yes or no.
Because if we misunderstood it, then they may misunderstand it as well.
Yeah, we'll just send a letter with the check. We'll send a letter with the check. That work? We'll send a letter with the check. So, and again, I apologize. That wasn't my intent to be misleading or anything. I just was trying to articulate.
Like I said, it just came, and that was the first time I'd seen it. Just opened it. That's all.
Service agreements were a thorn under my saddle the first time we went through one of these sessions. I sat here and told, I don't think it's appropriate for us to be spending tax dollars on what amounts to charities. I was ready to get rid of them a long time ago. This has been an incremental process, but it's my understanding that we will this year give no more than $2,000, and in additional years, we'll give nothing. Of course, I won't be here much beyond this year, so somebody else will be participating in that decision, but that's my intent right now.
The $2,000 was kind of a compromise, if I remember correctly.
For this year, because of
Right, it was a compromise.
their receipt,
We cut the
their
dog-
budget had receipts from us in it.
We cut the dog's tail off a little bit at a time.
Right. Now, one other thing. I'd like to add my word of congratulations to Mrs. Starnes. I know a bit about how she worked to achieve the designations that she has. She's one of about 3 people that I know of that have spent years and years driving back and forth to educate themselves, and I do congratulations. Thank you. And I'm open to a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.